Coming to you live from the Stream.tv studios in Hollywood, California, Pensado's Place is brought to you by Vintage King, the Blackbird Academy, Avid, Recording Connection, Studio 202, Slate Media Technologies, and Audio Technica.
That was a good one. Our guest is a master of alternative rock. We got a drop-in from Indaba that you're going to enjoy. There's some Pensado news we're going to share with you. We've got a brand new ITL. We are chock-a-block full. You're at the place, baby. Pensado's Place.
Yay. Hey everybody, glad to have you with us again this week. Excitement's building, tension's mounting.
That's for sure.
Sweat glands sweating, mascara melting, and
booty's bumping.
Gas a flowing or something.
Yeah,
chock-a-block? What the hell does that mean?
Well, you know, it's to match gas a flowing. So you can draw your own conclusions.
No, I like it. I think. I'm thinking Chumbawamba.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, that's a band I know. How you been?
I've been good. I will tell you what, as an NBA fan, if your mix of the Michael Jackson song Connect to the Jeep commercial plays about every 22 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And,
I haven't heard it yet.
And I smile because we have participation. So congratulations on that, man.
No,
it's very cool.
You know. I'd still be like working for car fare if it were for you.
Well,
car fare?
We've moved past that,
okay.
So we're in good shape. A lot going on. Should we get to it?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Hey there, gang. Good to see you. Time for another journey through audio land. Let's get the homework done and out of the way. Likes and subscribes. You guys are just kicking mucho behind. Please and thank you for keeping it up. Chongora updates me every week that we're growing. To the best sponsors in the land, Vintage King. Nice note from owner Mike Nero this morning. I'll share that with you later.
Mike and Andrew.
Vintage King continues to set the standard. We love the guys. The Blackbird Academy, Brother Dave here is headed down there in a couple of days.
Yay.
Next week's show will be live from the incredible Blackbird studio. We're going to have some cool guests. We're going to have some important info. Make sure you tune in. Our good folks at Audio Technica are headed to LA. They're bringing us a bunch of product. We're going to sit down and go through it all and plan out some great initiatives to benefit all of you guys. Dave and I are uber fond of these guys. We already use their headphones.
Mm-hmm.
We're really excited to introduce this company to you. They care a great deal.
They do. Good products.
And we're glad, absolutely, we're glad to have them as part of the family. Speaking of family, our Avid family sent us some cool ideas last week. We're marinating on those, and we'll lock in on those post-haste. Thanks much, Anthony Gordon, for that. A couple days ago, you shot this really cool ITL with John King from the legendary Chung King studio in New York. You're going to get two killers and one ITL. This is courtesy of the Recording Connection boys. How was that ITL with John?
Oh, well, first of all, I move at a different pace than John does. So
he's New York, right?
He backed off a little bit for me. I quadrupled my pace for him, and we met in the middle. And I'm real proud of what we did. John is, I don't want to use the word legend because he's as relevant now, maybe more so than he's ever been. But, I mean, how many great records from Chung King Studios have we heard? And
Abbey Road of hip hop, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I had a blast with him and Jamie and Justin, one of the students, and can't thank them enough. They made everything so easy to do.
Right.
And, of course, Colin and I tried to make it difficult.
Of course. And succeeded, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
I enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
Cool. Well, hats off to Recording Connection boys for all that, for pulling all that together. Now, if you take a moment and listen really closely, that low roar you hear, that's Stephen Slate and the Slate Media team preparing to unleash the hounds. Trust me when I tell you, between the Raven, his current product lines, and what they're close to unveiling, these guys kick serious tail. Stephen always does. Along with Fab, who's a brilliant designer, has become a really good friend of ours.
Gabrielle.
Here's what you can count on. Slate products, they just personify passion and quality and execution, correct?
And let's add to that musicality, usefulness. I've got an upcoming ITL that Brian Peterson and I just finished, and it's 5 things I always tend to put on my stereo bus, and Slate made it.
No question about it. now to the big event, the Pensado Awards. Oh my God. So we got plenty of news having to do with the Pensado Awards. Dave, why don't you do the first honor on our big get?
Well, we just landed our fourth host. We've been talking about the three we already have. And this week, our ACE staff, Robbie and Lisa and the gang, just informed us that Lisa Loeb will be the fourth host. I'm pretty excited about that. By proxy, through Ron Fair, I have a lot of history with Lisa, and one of my favorite songwriters and singers of all time. Love the Glasses.
Yeah, no question.
And I think it rounds out our host nicely.
The theory that we had, Lisa really fulfills our wish to have a bona fide songwriter. She's also a music creator. She engineers and makes music. She's a multimedia artist, voiceovers and children's music and books. She's film and television appearances as an actress. Fan of the show, which we didn't know. And I think a perfect compliment to our already announced host. We got four killers. And
Perfect, didn't it?
Yeah, it's going to really bring it together. So we are set. Rock and roll Prince Chris Lord-Alge, pop and Latina darling, Miami's own and big Heat fan, Marcela Arequia, the hip-hop Don Young guru and singer-songwriter and multimedia chanteuse, Lisa Loeb. And that is fantastic. That's going to be a
I want to
great
be a
night.
chanteuse.
You can't.
You haven't seen my operation schedule lately, have you?
But I heard you singing.
It's a new world, Herb. Catch up with the times.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have the chanteuse. Correct.
Yeah, it's a Black & Decker kit.
So, amongst our silliness, back to the awards. Those tasked with nominating are busy doing so. We'll have info for you next week on that. We have some information on contributions you can make. We have a wonderful contributions in terms of voting and stuff, not money. We have a wonderful group of supporting sponsors who are stepping up to help out and be involved. You can see them here. One of the places we see tons of activity is on the Breakthrough Mixer Award. That's powered by Indaba. Click the link right below me and get to mixing fast. The track is Emily Green's New York City. Guess who we have joining us for a bit? It is the one, the only Emily Green. Welcome.
Hey guys, how are you?
So you sign this piece of paper, think nothing's going to happen, and now you're caught up in this craziness called
Now we're all
Pensado
in
Play.
trouble.
We're all in trouble, right? Unbelievable. It was such a coincidence that when Jonathan said, "Is it Emily Green, last name with an E, and a friend of mine?" I was like, maybe, and then all of a sudden it was, and then we started harassing you.
It's becoming a smaller world every day.
Every moment, every moment.
Do you know this person? Yeah, I know them.
And here you are. What's really cool is we feel pretty strongly about Indaba and how they do what they do. What about you? What's your sense about them as a company?
I love Indaba. When I first started out and I was grinding it out on the Lower East Side, I mean, that company was kind of starting up, and a lot of my friends who were even playing out were also working there, who are equally super, super talented.
Yeah.
And I think because a lot of them are artists and are creatives, they are so welcoming, warm, and encouraging about getting other artists involved. And I think for that alone, that company is amazing because it's a company about artists that's built by artists.
Absolutely, absolutely. And why I think there isn't something like them out there. That everybody in their company is a musician, but they also have engineers who code and all that kind of stuff. But they make sure everybody is a musical person, so it shows through, I think, and I think the community responds appropriately. Pretty cool. So here's the process, guys, so that you're clear. Once it's all gathered and it's boiled down to a manageable number, that number will be forwarded to Dave, and just like he does with every contest, Dave will make those decisions based on his 10-point criteria, based completely creative. We don't factor in likes or comments. We don't even look at them.
I don't know it by names. I get numbers.
Exactly. So we're making it as creative and as pure as possible. And God, when they sent the track, then it turns out our director is friends with Emily. And I was like, will she come on? Will she come on? So has he handled you and just beat you up about coming on?
Yeah, it's been kind of scary.
God, sorry.
I've been really terrified of the emails I've been getting. No, I actually got a text message that was like, your name just came up, and it's something like New York City. And I just moved to Los Angeles a year ago last June and had been living in the East Village for the past 5 years before that. So he said, I swore it was you, but they weren't sure because they said your last name was like the color. And I was like, no, there's an E at the end. And anyway, he was like, you should really come in and meet everybody. They're great to hang out with, and they're also amazingly talented. No, yeah, it's been awesome.
So what's going on with your artists, from an artistic standpoint? You got stuff coming up soon?
Yeah, I've been writing a lot and co-writing in LA, and it's been amazing.
Cool.
Very different than kind of the...
Big change.
Yeah, you know, gigging in New York is like cutting your teeth and kind of getting great at your instrument. And
that's right.
I did go to music school, so it was like you kind of have to go detox through everything that you've learned there and then kind of figure out what you like, and as opposed to what you think you're supposed to like, because you want the kids at your school to think you're smart or that you're you know, super proficient at multiple instruments or something. But and now it's just kind of figuring out what I like and what I feel represents me most. And yeah, I got several projects coming out, and I've had a lot of stuff licensed on TV, and so it's been kind of fun, especially because I feel like I can kind of sneak around and do a lot of things because I've been a hired gun as well. So it's kind of like I'm keeping busy and staying sane.
And that multiple skill set's good for a town like LA. Like New York is a different kind of drill. LA is a different kind of. When I first got out here, somebody described it as New York is a girl who will make you dance, and LA is a girl you have to ask to dance. So when you're in New York, you have no choice. You're either with it or it'll roll over you. In LA, you got to be specific and get it done yourself.
For sure, but I also feel like in New York, like the person who asks, or like if you're dancing, it's like the leather jacket is too cool, whereas here everybody's leather jacket is at the costume store. So it's like if you ask anybody to dance, they're probably like, yeah, I'm ready to dance with you, you know? So people are kind of, you know, as far as like it's more willing to say yes out here.
Right, that's a great, one of the things we were talking about creatively about the New York City track was are the toms there or not, and should people put them in?
I'm totally confused. I thought there were floor toms in it, but I think maybe when they picked up the, you know, the sessions, maybe they weren't there when it happened, but I swear there were floor toms in it when it was recorded. So to anybody who is really stressed out about it, add them.
There you go. Get
creative and just do it yourself. I'm totally not judging it, and I think that you got an open mind too.
Very cool.
Hold up. Add 5 points for toms.
Yeah, if you added your own toms, I swear, because I think people were freaking out. They're like, "Oh, that Dave, he's so tricky," and I'm thinking, no, I think it was an accident. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, with a name like Pensado, you're going to get points for adding some Latin percussion too. Tito Puente. I want some Tito Puente. I'm just kidding. Don't do it.
So get to that link. You met the wonderful creative person who has put this track together. You're going to be able to take license and do it. It'll get winnowed down. Then it'll get to Dave, and Dave will get down to the final nominees and finalists. Keep it as purely creative as possible. Thanks to Cleo and all the gang at Indaba, and we are heading toward this crazy date. Let's summarize what we're having. First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't make it the last
Can I
time.
interject something real quick?
You may.
Guys, when you judge these contests, and I've judged a lot, I just want to give you a little heads up. I'm going to be listening to a lot of versions of the same song. Sometimes, being human, you can do something really great, but it's the same thing 100 other people did really great, and it'll get past me. When you enter a contest, remember, you're not making a record. You're not trying to get something on the radio. You're entering a contest. So try and be unique. Go to those parts of your personality that are a little different and bring those to the forefront. Catch my attention early, very early, and show me what you got from a creative standpoint. The system I've devised, I have a category for creativity, and I give a little more weight to that. So I just wanted you to know that, okay? I know you guys are going to kill it. You guys always do. I'm always shocked at how many great mixes we get in these contests.
So if somebody submits a track and in the front of it, they go, "Hey, Dave!" And will that get your attention and make it stand out?
Oye, pendejo, that would.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to clarify and give people an opportunity. Let's round it all up. June 28th, Fairmont Hotel, 1 block from the beach in Santa Monica, California. Tickets are rolling out, legends and icons and you all coming together to celebrate. Go to pensadoawards.com. Again, ticket sales there, hotel information, category information, pro and online committees, and anything else you need. Young Guru rocking the after party. Men, get your swagger on. Ladies, knock them out. Remember our tagline at the end of this award show: booties bumping, mascara melting. That's what it's going to be. Pensado Awards, be there. Dave, introduce our ITL.
I don't have mascara.
Yes, you do.
You were supposed to tell.
I know it.
It is a new world. I'm blessed with such a wonderful network of friends, and my friend Dylan turned me on to a plugin I just fell in love with. Very, very, very inexpensive. And then I found a couple of free plugins thanks to a couple of buddies, Graham Cochran and Russ Hughes over at PTE. So check out these 3 plugins. 2 of them are free, one of them is very affordable, and they're very cool plugins. Let me know what you think. Today I want to share with you a couple of new plugins that I've discovered, and I also want to share with you how I discovered them. I love cruising around the internet and checking out. There's about 40 or 50 websites that I've got bookmarked, and I within a 10-day period, I'll get to all of them. As you know, Russ Hughes and Mike over at Pro Tools Expert are in my top. They're my favorite. I love everything those guys do. I learned so much from them. A couple of these plugins I'm showing you I found on their website. And then I love KVR. It's a great website too. And then my buddy Graham Cochran over at Recording Revolution, I checked him out this week, and I got a couple of ideas for some future Into the Lair. So make a note of those, and support all the various websites that make an effort to give you good, solid information at no cost, including that one that has my name in it, all right? So this plugin is free, and I think it's the coolest plugin for you guys. And I want to show you quickly what it does. It's called Paniculata. It's made by BDL. And you put this on your stereo bus, and now you have access to check your phase here. That's the left phase out of phase, right out of phase. You can check and see if your mono compatibility is good, and then you've got different options on which way you want to check it. So let's check it. Ooh, Dave, that sounded really good in mono. And then now you can flip left and right. And this is my favorite. I grew up working on a lot of Neve consoles that had a button that you could flip things left and right. Now, why would you want to flip? Phase is obvious, but why would you want to flip something left and right? Well, you can, like, what comes to mind is you want to see how the hi-hat sounds on the left, how the hi-hat sounds on the right. A lot of times it helps you get your stereo perspective and tighten it up a little bit. Think of it as sometimes you put headphones on and you have a little better clarity in terms of your mix platform and width and those sorts of things. But flipping the phase, flipping the left and right, watch this, can sometimes do that. Another one I want to show you, and this is one of my favorites. It's a little company named DDMF, soon to be big. The gentleman that runs it is very educated and very musical, and makes several plugins I like. I showed you Meta plugin a while back. And this is his Directional EQ. Now what he's doing here is from here up, from the blue knobs up, is pretty much a traditional parametric. Now you can choose whether you want each one of these strips, you can choose whether you want them to be high pass, low pass, band pass, different band pass and notch, peak, low shelf and high shelf. And the shelving on this thing is really good. So this is where it gets interesting. This technically is your pan knob, but it can also be more than that. And from here up, the blue, the green, and the orange knobs are functioning like a classic parametric EQ. This is double duty. This is a pan knob, and it can in conjunction with the red knob, can do even more things. You can select how you want this to operate with all these options, and then you can solo each individual frequency, which I love, and then you can mute individual frequencies. Now, here, what we're going to do is we can select a frequency. Like I've selected 1.5K and average bandwidth, half an octave, I'm guessing. And now watch what happens when I pan this. So what I'm doing is I'm panning just the frequency I select. So if I want my 1K to go left and my 2K to go right, the cool thing about this plugin, and what I want you to experiment with, is this degree knob. This degree knob is more than a pan knob. It works in conjunction with this knob to get things a little wider, and it also gives you MS options, so you can treat the middle of the mix differently than you treat the edges. So experiment with this guy. It's just a badass little plug-in. Now, another one that I ran into, I love this plug-in, and this is free. This is by a company called Tokyo Dawn, and I just downloaded it, and I've fallen in love with it. I got to share this with you. The filtering on this is pretty sweet. You get to choose different types of EQs, and you can guess what American, British, German, and Soviet are. Let's start with American. Well, let's start with British. And this, by the way, this EQ saturation knob is just what it says. It's a very gentle saturation that gives you a little color. I mean, that's smooth as heck. And did I just say heck? That's smooth as hell. And then check this out. Now I've got a little color on that 808. And then you've got, of course, the mid and then the highs. Then you've got other options too. You can select different sounds for your EQ here. You can match the gain coming in and out, or you can just use it like a traditional EQ. But for free, this little guy sounds amazing. Check out the Tokyo Dawn website. They've got some really cool new artists and some really great sounds. So there you have it. Panipulator, Directional EQ, Slick EQ, some plugins you might not have heard of before that I really think you should check out. They won't be a big hit on your pocketbook, and they really sound a lot better than what you're paying for them, which is mostly nothing in most cases here. Okay, next time.
Amazing story you're about to hear, along with artists like Garbage and Beck and Muse and Foster the People. We are really thrilled. Dave has been working on this pretty hard for a while.
Yeah, since the 60s.
Since the 60s. Welcome to our guest, Billy Bush. Billy, how are you, man?
What's up, man?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
Finally, we his schedule's so busy. To Billy's, I don't know how to finish that sentence, but Billy's been so kind with me, badgering him, and he's always working. And I'm so happy that you're working, but I'm so happy you had a day off today.
I'm happy to be here, guys.
Absolutely.
It's cool.
Billy, I think your story is so instructive to a lot of people that that want to achieve some sort of success in this industry, at least pay the bills, you know. Take us through how you got started.
It's kind of a long story, but in a nutshell, I started as most people do, as being a musician and wanting to be in a band. I had a couple of circumstances where it kind of led me into another part of being in the music industry. You know, the biggest being that, I was in college studying music, and I had a car accident that ruined my playing career and made me, as you can imagine, college debts are extraordinary.
Absolutely.
So all of a sudden I'm looking like, being 90 grand in debt, and I'm, 20 years old.
Right.
So
Jesus.
I'm like, well, what do I do? How do I get out of this? And luckily at that time, a friend of mine who was a guitar player named Andy Timmons had just gotten a job with a hair metal band in New York called Danger Danger, and said, hey, you can fix guitars and amps. Why don't you come on the road with me? It's like, you like doing that stuff, right? And it was like, wow, I get paid?
Yeah.
And a per diem?
Right.
Well, oh yeah, okay, sign me up. So after that, I had a long history of being a guitar and keyboard tech for quite a few bands. And that sort of segued into 1995. I got a call from a tour manager I'd worked with saying that he was working with a new band, and they didn't really have anybody that can help them get their live show together. They'd made a record in the studio with no thought whatsoever of figuring out how to do it live. And they were struggling trying to figure out how to recreate it. And this was back, like I said, 95. So there wasn't a lot of technology. There were no computers, nothing like that. And he said, you want to come check it out? Like, they're out for 6 weeks. It's a band called Garbage. I was like, yeah, I like that record. Sure, I'll come out. So I started touring with them, helping them kind of get their show together. They realized, Butch really realized early on that I had, an affinity for all the new technology that was happening at the time. This is right when Pro Tools was starting to come out and Cubase was out. And the digital world, he'd gotten his feet wet with Nirvana. Like, the first time he'd ever done any digital editing was on Nevermind.
Wow.
And then he saw, what Sonic Solutions could do in the mastering scenario. So he was like, why don't you go find what the coolest sort of digital workstation thing is, learn how to use it, come into the studio, show us how to use it, and, it'd be kind of fun. I was like, okay, cool. He's like, yeah, take us 2 weeks to learn it or whatever, right? So after 2 weeks, he was like, you know what? I don't really want to learn a new way of working. I like working the way I want to work. Tell you what, I've always worked with an engineer. You're going to be my engineer on this. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about recording.
Wow.
And, you just take care of all this stuff.
Wow.
And,
I once had a friend who got an acting job because he lied and put on his resume that he could high jump. And the relevance of that is, doesn't it seem to you, Billy, like the more skills you have and the more you can bring to any party, the more likely you are to find a little crack in the doorway that you can squeeze through, like your ability to fix amps and to work on those sorts of things.
Oh,
Look what it's led to.
Yeah, absolutely. I
don't know if you can teach that or learn that, but
that was one thing I would always say is, like, education is continuous. Like,
Never stops.
My favorite pastime is just learn and geek out, watch this show, read whatever I can about the history of recording and what people are doing, and never have like a closed mind as to what the possible thing is. Like, a lot of people think like the only thing that's going to have any value in my career is if it's exactly how I imagine it's going to pan out. I would never have imagined, and I have a joke, Shirley and I have a joke to this day of like, how the hell did we ever get together? It's like, it's so disparate, like how this could possibly ever happen. Like, one decision in any direction and we'd have both been in completely different paths, right? So it's all about keeping an eye open and like going, you know what, it may not be in my mind's eye what's an ideal situation, but it's an opportunity, and you never know where that opportunity is going to take you. It's like, at the end of the day, like, I ended up doing exactly what I love to do because I've always had a fascination of making records. From an early age, like, I remember listening to a Queen record and going, oh my God, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Where are all those vocals coming from? How is that possible? And like, and now to be able to go full around and like be in that situation, like, I could never have plotted that course.
And it's also such an amazing journey. About in the last month, I get uber sensitive about what happens with us, but I got concerned that we were on air too much, going, gee golly wow, but it's really because just what you described, Dave and I do. We keep going, how did this happen?
Yeah, right.
And 4 years in, we're still like, my God. I mean, we we steward it and we take care of it, and it's wonderful.
I thought you knew how it happened. You guided it.
Shh, don't give it away. But it's still pretty amazing, but it comes from, and this is good for the audience, getting off the bench and trying.
Absolutely.
Being curious. I love, I wear people out. I'm just asking 1,000 questions. I'm constantly curious. I'm curious about everything. And then it morphs into stuff that triggers you. But you got to be hungry, right? You have to have an appetite.
Yeah, you got to be hungry, willing to do work that maybe you don't think you should do.
Yeah.
But it's like I've never said no to anything. And if anybody's ever asked me like, can you do this? I would go, yeah, I can do it. I may have no clue how to do it.
Right, and figure it out.
By the time I have to do it, I will have it figured out how
Absolutely.
to do it.
Oh, we're so
many people that do what we do, like Leslie last week. There's groups of us in this world of music that when we listened to that record when we were a child, the majority of people want to know how they played it, the parts, but we want to know how they did it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Leslie was talking about, I forget what record he was talking about, and then the same thing with you. And like when I used to listen to records, I'd mute one side so I could hear the guitar player breathing in between takes, on the other side, and just crazy stuff. Something I want to get your opinion, because you're in a perfect position to answer this. When I was growing up in South Florida, there was a group called the Atlanta Rhythm Section. So Into You, some of the best musicians I've ever heard to this day, even. And when I saw them live, it sounded exactly like the record. I was so disappointed because I wished then I'd just bought the record, because at that time they were the same price.
Right.
So I've never really tried so much to make a record that a band could perform live. I've never thought that they were connected in any way. What's your thoughts on that, in that now you've been in both worlds so deeply?
Well, I feel the same way as you. It's like I think that, there are two completely separate art forms.
Okay.
And, I think that the live version shouldn't be, neither one should sacrifice for the other. You shouldn't make a compromise. When you go in to make a record, and I know that, working with Butch, that's never an idea of like, occasionally somebody go like, oh God, how am I going to play this drum part live? Who cares? We'll figure it out later. But it's like, what can we do that's going to make, something which 15 years from now, you're going to listen back to and go, God, that was really cool.
Yeah.
How did we ever come up with that? That was really cool. And you don't want to compromise that just because you're like, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to play that every single night live.
Right.
And as a result, like some of the records we've done, like, Butch and I did a couple records with a band called Against Me. And when they first came in, they were a great band. But when you really started to kind of like make a record and you saw all the disparate elements and how they went together, you're kind of like, okay, well, everything is kind of loose. And for them, I think that, I know that James, the guitar player, said like it was really informative working with us because we really started to show, like where he was kind of like, where the one was supposed to be and how he was kind of like moving around. And he really kind of like got an education in like what tight meant. And they did stuff that we did on the record, which it was right at the edge of their ability. And then they went on tour for a year, came back, we made another record with them. And all that stuff that was really difficult on that previous record was easy for them to play.
Sure.
They'd gone from here to here, and I think that's the thing. It's like, make the record you want to make something that's interesting sonically, make sure the songs are great, and worry about the live element when it comes time. Because, for us, we're engineers, and part of what being an engineer is solving problems,
I agree 100%.
Right? So, it's not a bad problem to have an incredible record you got to figure out how to do live.
Right.
That's a pretty good problem to have.
First world problem, no question.
I was just sitting here thinking, I would want Eddie and the boys, Van Halen, to kind of stay close to the records, but I don't care about other groups, so maybe I'm a hypocrite. And then I'm also sitting here thinking that video probably is, YouTube probably changed a lot of what you have to do now live too. So anyway, I don't like that question anymore. I'm going to ask you this kind of from a devil's advocate. So this isn't a Chris Hansen moment or anything like that, To Catch a Predator. So what does warm mean to you? I hate the word warm. I don't like using the word warm. What is warm? It's just dull, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should mention that because like, I know that this is one of those things which I've seen as a theme throughout your show. And to me, because people ask like, well, do you work in the box or do you work outside of the box? I think that they're all tools, kind of going for a specific effect. There are certain records I make where clarity and precision is one of the most important things to it. And in that
Well
case,
said. Well said.
in that case, like I wouldn't want the warmth element of it, which to me translates into softening the transients, saturation in the low mids. You know?
This is so good, Herb.
And so, you know, but then there are other records where it's like, you know, if I'm doing like a real rock record, you know, the precision and the clarity of it isn't necessarily helping the sort of sonic imprint of the song come across. In that case, it's like, well, yeah, then I want saturation with distortion on things. I want things to be a little sort of narrower bandwidth-wise.
Much like high definition television did to 80-year-old newscasters.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes there's things you just don't need to see.
Okay, I get it. And I'm not being condescending or treating you nice because you're the guest, but I like the way you put it. It's neither one is good or bad. It's just another tool and concept, I guess, that you pick and choose. And it doesn't have to be universally one way in a given song. It can vary from, because we've got the tools now to go any direction we want. I mean, you and I are big fans of the ATR 102, and that's a warm machine, you know. So cool. I like that. What's your opinion on reverb plugins? I know you like some of the classics.
Yeah.
Have we gotten there yet? Are we 90% there, 95% there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole emulation thing to me is, I'm not that interested in how sort of real it is, you know, how accurate it is so much. I'm more, again, like I said, they're all tools to me, so it doesn't really matter if it's, you know, actually sounds like an EMT or not.
Right.
All I want is what it sounds like. If it sounds like, if I can get a sound to happen that is what I'm hearing in my head, I'm happy. I don't care how that comes around, right? But I think, like, yeah, I think a lot of the, like, one of the very first things I got into with the UAD plugins were their reverbs, because they were the first two I heard where I really felt like they were kind of three-dimensional to me. But at the same time, like, you know, two of my favorite reverbs are the Bricosity and the Eventide. You know?
2016?
No, the H8000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The 2016, like,
I've not used that one very much.
yeah, I mean,
The
it's
2016, I wore that out in the 90s.
oh yeah, I mean, it's like you put the 2016 on a snare and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, I know.
Or room on the toms.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, great. But you know, it's like, so for me, reverb is a funny thing. Like, you know, a lot of the guys I work with just hate reverb. Like Butch is not a fan of reverb, and neither is Rick Rubin. You know, they both feel like that just puts things back in a mix.
Which sometimes is good.
And which is sometimes, you know, necessary and good, but for me, a lot of times, like, you know, I use it more kind of as an effect, you know, not so much as like trying to create a space. You know, I'm just trying to create some sonic element that's interesting, you know.
I want your perspective on this too, because I'm conflicted about this. On the records where you PIM them, produce, engineer, and mix. I just made that word up.
PIM.
Clearly.
Because on your website it says P and then E and then M, so then some of them you PIM them. So like some of the garbage records. What should I be doing if I mix? Like I just mixed the bulk of a Macy Gray record, and I had to make the decision: do I want these to be 7 or 8 great songs? Do I want them to have a cohesiveness?
Right.
That's an MI word, in case you don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
And then, or do I want them to just stand alone as great songs? What's your approach to the concept of an album like we grew up with now? Is that dead? It seems to be sales-wise it's dead, but do we need to pay attention to it? You know what I'm saying, Herb?
Well, I think it depends on the artist and what the artist is trying to get across. I mean, I'm still a huge fan of the album. Like, you know, and it's funny because, like, you know, it's very sort of now to get back into vinyl. But there is a magic to, like, when you put a record on and, you know, like 15 minutes later you're going to have to get up and turn the side, but you're not going to be able to, like, fast forward into another song and put it on shuffle.
Right.
You know, and when you listen to great records, like, there is a common theme through them. So the ideal is to have 7 or 8 great songs that stand on their own, but together make a cohesive statement, which is more, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That doesn't happen all the time. But for me, I guess it kind of depends, starts with, like, you know, I would try to make the record the most solid thing possible, you know, without trying to compromise.
You're saying make the record a cohesive single.
Yeah, so that way you can listen to it and it's like it's a journey for, you know, 45 minutes or an hour, however long it is. You know, and then, you know, for me the compromise is like, well, okay, if there's a couple tracks that need to stand on their own more as singles, then maybe I'll approach a single mix as a completely separate entity from the album, if necessary.
I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but tell me if you think this is an accurate way to look at it. If you go on a vacation with your family and you take photographs during that vacation, you come back and you create an album of that vacation. So the photographs can live uniquely and individually to document moments in the vacation, but as a whole, they give you a feeling of the entire experience. Is that a crazy way to look at it?
No, I would totally look at it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that, you could pick up a book and read a chapter, and that chapter may be a whole story unto itself that stands on its own, but it's all part of a larger, bigger picture.
That body of work concept, when done well, it's just a bigger emotion. You get to immerse more deeply, and then you pull out of that a broader thing. Now, when it's wrong, you kind of are just tossed around and buffeted around. But when it's right, man, you don't even know where you are till it's over. And then when it's over, something special happened to you. And that I like craftsmen who still understand what that is. I think you see it a lot. You see it a lot in television today. The TV that's available today is like going to the movies.
Yeah.
The dramas and the cinematography and the other kinds of stuff.
Stuff's blowing up.
And people engage now in ways where they'll just download it all at once, and that's about a body of work over time. And on the music side, which really was a precursor of that, I think the craftsmen who understand that are guys who will stand the test of time longer. In my opinion, everybody understands the singles game, but the big body game is artisan kind of level work.
Yeah, to me, it's like like having a hit is it's great for everybody involved. But like the thing that really do create artists that have long-term careers are, like you say, a solid body of work, and that usually tends to be like, okay, anybody can go farm out, get a song from somewhere, or they may get lucky and write us a great song.
Right.
But to get 12 songs on a record, then you can go and then go back to live, like perform something that will create an emotion that people will relate to.
Absolutely.
I think is, to me, what we should be striving as artists to do.
I'll tell you where I think you see it reflected, because you understand the live side. And as a manager, that was always a big part of, how you figure out what you're going to do with your artist. Legacy acts, the ones who work a lot, still make a lot of money, sort of defy the economic, gravity that's out there. Generally, you go because of the body of work.
Absolutely.
That you go and see Earth, Wind and Fire's body of work, Bon Jovi, Eagles, whoever and you're not really going for the new music and the singles that are new. You're going for those albums and that time that imprinted in your psyche and so forth. Absolutely. And you kind of want it like you got it too. Yeah. Like, you can give a live version, but make sure those elements are there that touch me. And that to me proves the test of time concept.
Absolutely.
Which it will last forever if you do it right. So good skill set for people to know.
Interesting. Neon Trees. I love Everybody Talks. That's one of my favorite songs in a long time. The drums on that, how did those come about? I love the drum sound on that. They do such wonderful double duty. The verse is a little candy, but the drums don't change, and they sound huge in the chorus. And that's one of my favorite choruses. That's what I love about the song. Now I love the whole song, but when I first heard it, I'm like, this sounds kind of happy. But
I think that
I love that song.
I think
I love that group.
Yeah, they're a really great band, and Elaine is a killer drummer. I mean, she's really, really super solid, super great. And they write really great songs.
Yes.
Tyler's a fantastic songwriter, and really can construct a song in a way that creates that sort of response from people. So that song, I didn't track the drums on that song. That one came to me before I started working on the record. And I came in and I engineered a good chunk of the records and then mixed the record. But for me, that was one of the things that when I heard the first rough mix, I was like, the song was great, but it was really kind of flat. And I like dynamics. I like things that kind of like to have a scene change between section and sections. So
that was poster child for that.
Yeah,
that
so
song.
I like that. When you heard it, you were kind of like, what? What happened?
Yeah.
Which is what kind of like what I want to go for, to try to keep people listening and interested in what's happening throughout the course of the song, obviously. But yeah, that was exercise in compression and
Oh, really?
Yeah, on the drums.
Did you compress the whole drum track or just individual?
That was like, you know, for some reason, like the drums when they came across, I think didn't have the same sort of, you know, energy that I wanted it to convey. And, you know, I think everybody wanted to convey. That's why I ended up getting into the track anyway, was that they kind of felt like it wasn't quite going to the next level. And for me, like the one part that was kind of lacking on that was the drums didn't really seem to like kind of like lift the way I wanted them to. So yes, there was a lot of like parallel compression on the kick and the snare, a lot of, you know, a parallel, you know, drum channel, like all drum subs that was really heavily compressed. Anything I could come up with that would create like energy when it kicked in. You know what I mean? So it kind of like smacked you in the face.
What'd you mix that on?
That I mixed on a hybrid sort of in the box, outside the box kind of thing. So that was one that I used a summing mixer for, the Equinox summing mixer for.
Because the stereo bus sounds like it has some version of an SSL compressor on it. Say yes, please. Make me look like just a wonderful...
You know, that's amazing. It was definitely
I knew it.
No, actually, you know what it was? It was the Shadow Hills mastering compressor.
Ooh,
Shadow Hills,
that's even
our
better.
friend.
Yeah. So, but it was on the VCA side, not the Opto side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of like an SSL.
Well, yeah, I think Peter told me that he had one nearby when he was working on it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not really. Peter's in a world of his own.
Do you do your own tracking for stuff like that? Because to me, that's still as much an art form as mixing and anything else.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's funny because people ask like, what do I do? And it's like, I like producing, I like engineering, and I like mixing because to me, they're all different sort of mindsets, and I learn something new each time I do it.
Yeah.
You know, mixing I like because it's like usually me in my room just sort of like digging through a track and trying to find something that makes me want to listen to it over and over and over.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Engineering is fun because it's just like, you know, who doesn't like going in the studio and like throwing mics at things and like trying to come up with something like, how do I come up with something that nobody's ever heard before? Right?
Plus
And-
the psychology of tracking I love.
Yeah, you know, and the energy of like having a band in a room and all that, right?
Yeah,
it's like it's fun, and for me, engineering is sort of it's kind of stress free, you know, because like if I'm engineering something for Butch, it's Butch's job to worry about the song, to worry about the budget,
Right, exactly. Absolutely.
pleasing people. I'm just there to make it sound cool, you know. And as a producer, it's like I like it because I get to have a little bit of input all the way through the process, from the song to the mastering, you know. So.
Snow Patrol, I think the song's called In the End.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite songs and mixes and recordings too. What did you do on that?
That was a mix that came through. I think that they were looking for something, again, like they wanted something that would be a little bit more radio friendly.
Oh, okay.
And like when they sent through the version that made the record, it kind of didn't have any sort of pop to it. Like it didn't sort of like, it sounded great and had a mood, but it didn't really have.
Grab you.
Yeah, it didn't grab you, and it wasn't very dynamic. You know, so again, it was the same thing. Like, how do I take a song which is kind of inherently builds anyway, and sort of exaggerate all the builds, and then make the vocal like really compelling and sit up front?
I forget. I've been reading so much lately about Butch and you. I'm a little confused with my facts, but what record did Butch tell you to make it sound like on Garbage, make it sound like a dump truck in a tornado?
That was the end of Push It.
Push It, right.
Yeah, where it kind of like speeds up, does a very speed thing, like part of it very speeds up, and yeah, he was like, man, this, what it needs to sound like a dump truck in a tornado.
And you went,
a dump
"Got
truck
it."
full of cement in a tornado. I'm like, okay, how do I do this?
Jesus.
Which that was one of the things, like in that was '98 when we did that, and that was the first time that we'd ever recorded in the Pro Tools, and we recorded the whole record in the Pro Tools. It only hit tape when we were mixing.
Wow.
And it was great because at that time was the first time we were really able to like do any sort of like sound designy sort of stuff really easily. That wasn't, everything before that was all samplers and like manipulating it in a Kurzweil or a Kai or something.
Doesn't Shirley and the gang, don't they try to create the sonic imprint of a song as they're creating the song? Are they still doing it that way?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of.
Is that a blessing or a curse?
Well, it can be difficult. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it, obviously, but that's one thing that like for them, it's all about like there's a certain sort of sonic element and emotion that they try to convey, And Butch is interesting because when he hears a song, I think he kind of hears it in a completely sort of, in its complete form, and he starts building it from the ground up with that in mind. He's kind of like an architect. Like he's like in his mind, he's like, okay, the song is going to be like this, and then from the drum sound all the way to the vocal sound to the mix, like it kind of builds as it goes. So the garbage stuff, like, you know, if you were to hear a garbage song that was in process, you know, depending on how finished the song was, like if it was 80% finished, the mix would be about 80% done. Because it kind of gets mixed as it goes, because it all has to fit together in a very specific way.
I like that.
You know, which is great. It's a lengthy process to do it that way, because, you know,
When you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's like, you know, if you're like stuck on one particular cornerstone of the building,
Right.
you know, you're kind of like, I need to get this to sound right and fit with everything that's going to happen afterwards before we can move on.
Yeah.
Is the band still using Ableton Live, which seems like a weird thing to me, but are they still using that to kind of construct their loops and organize all that stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, we use Ableton a lot. Like, we use Ableton for the live show a lot. Like, things transition from Pro Tools to Ableton. Butch, Duke are both really more comfortable in the world of Pro Tools. And Steve is the one who kind of like, he tends to like do a little bit more programming stuff, and he'll do some stuff in Ableton. But when it comes to me, like I'll be the one who uses Ableton more when they come up with something where it's like, we need something here, and then I use it more as a, again,
When I think of the rock world, Ableton doesn't come to mind. I think of like a big stack of outboard gear. Ableton in the rock world, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, but you know, Ableton through a stack of outboard gear is pretty badass.
Absolutely.
You know what I do here?
That's a great idea, actually.
I've been trying to coordinate with Butch's schedule, and by the way, Butch is just a great human being.
Yeah, he's an amazing dude.
And so polite, and every time he rejects me.
Well, I was going to speak to that.
But I believe him. I think he's telling me the truth. Yeah. And when Butch does come on the show, maybe you could come by and we could both interview him together. That'd be fun.
There we go.
We'll put like a paper bag over your head and get the little eye holes, and you can.
I'll just feed you
talk
questions through your
Perfect. You sit in the control room.
Ask him what the garbagizer is.
Exactly.
What's the garbagizer
Oh, that's
piece?
perfect.
We've got a couple of plugins that we both just idolize. I love the Little Labs, the phase thing.
Oh yeah.
That's the greatest thing ever invented. Can you explain? I don't think people coming along and they're just getting into the industry, they don't understand phase relationships between everything that you're working on. Even something as simple as putting a sample in with a kick drum.
Yeah.
You create phase. Can you give us your Billy Bush lecture? Put on your bow tie and your robe, and give us a lecture on the importance of phase and phase relationships and how you keep those wrangled within a mix.
Yeah, I mean,
Not too much pressure on you there.
no, right? But it's interesting because, like, you know, I first kind of really started to understand that when I was starting to record guitars with multiple mics, you know, and then trying to figure out like how the subtle phase relationships between these microphones totally changed the sound more than anything else I was doing. Like if I moved to 57, you know, that far, it was a completely different guitar sound.
Right.
And I was like, wow. And then once I realized that, and we started getting in the world where we were stacking, you know, 15, 20, 40 drum loops and kick drums on top of each other in some of the garbage records, you realize that, okay, you have to really see what the polarity is doing. For one thing, you know, you want to have all the drums having the same sort of positive energy at the same time. Like you don't want to have one making the speaker go like this while the other one's making the speaker go like that.
Great explanation.
You know, which is basically what happens when they're when the polarity is reversed. And then when you see that, you know, like a transient may be really fast on this one and slow on this one, you can see that, you know, it ends up making it so that the speaker can't react fast enough. So you're wondering, well, like, why am I like pushing this and it's not getting any louder and it's not cutting anymore? It's actually getting smaller. And
So you make it warm.
yeah, so I make it warm. But that's where, like, the tools like the IBP. And I remember Jonathan came by the studio once with his prototype, and I was like, dude,
wow.
you're not. I need this now.
You are not leaving.
And I was like, I need to keep this.
I met him at NAMM. What a cool guy.
He's great. I mean, he's like a mad scientist of the nth degree. But you know, like when he was showing me like how, okay, this really sort of just sweeps between, because it used to be like, okay, well, my phase is either
180
on
or in.
or off, you know.
Right.
And then it was sort of like manipulating things and sliding things back and forth.
Yeah.
And I remember like the first time I really heard of somebody doing that was they were talking about a Steely Dan record where they were delaying, you know, things like, you know, by a millisecond or so. And I was like, why would you do that? Then Butch explained to me, like, if you really listen, and he's got an amazing ear for timing. Like he'll hear things that are like 3 milliseconds off easily.
Wow.
And he says it goes, to me, it just translates as a phase thing. Like if you listen to the mid-range of the tone of the kick drum, like, you know, if these are off by a little bit, like the mid-range focus changes.
It gets blurred.
Yeah.
To my ears.
Yeah.
The attack gets blurred.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing. Like for me, like one of the things that takes a long time with the garbage stuff is like when we do things like that, like when we stack guitars, we stack, you know, keyboards, we stack drums. Like all that stuff needs to be so tight. Otherwise, it just, you know, you lose the clarity and you lose the sort of effectiveness of it if it's not.
Okay, we've been serious so far. On the Jake Bugg record, which by the way, kudos to Rick
thanks, man.
Rubin and you and our dear buddy Andrew Sheps.
Yeah. Yeah, no pressure having to mix like
Oh God!
have your mixes sound on the same record as Andrew's.
This is why I love this guy. They gave him 19 tracks and he added 26 auxes. You gotta love a guy like
question.
that.
No
I thought I had that gift, but so what were all the extra tracks? Auxes and
Like auxes and things like that. Like, you know, with the stuff I did for the Jake record, it was so stripped down and so
typical Rick.
Yeah, and like, you know, he didn't want to hear compression. He didn't want to hear any effects. He didn't want to hear any reverb, you know. But he wanted to still sound compelling and modern. So I had to come up with ways of being able to create space within the mix, be able to place things so it didn't sound really sort of flat and like, you know, one-dimensional. And a lot of that was like, okay, well, if I can't really like compress it to the point where you can hear the compression, well, maybe I can create, you know, an aux channel and compress that and blend that in a little bit, and that'll fill it in some, you know. And okay, well, maybe I'll use, instead of like having a delay you can hear, I'll have maybe 6 different delays, because I kind of felt like, you know, I needed to make it so it sounded like it was in a space in general without it sounding like it was in a space. So I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I'll use a little bit of a long reverb, a little bit of a really short reverb, a little bit of a spring reverb, you know, and kind of blend that to taste till I got to a point where it felt like, oh, okay, this kind of feels like a band playing for real in a space, sounds really good, but everything's right, still in your face, everything's clear, you know, and everything's got energy, and, you know, it's compelling. You know?
Sir?
Yes.
How's your elbow? Loosen it up. It's time.
Oh, I'm gonna get my ice cream.
It's time for batters. What you think?
Hey, do you think Rick Rubin would do our show? Does he do? He doesn't do shows really.
I wouldn't know. I mean, you should ask him. I mean, he'd be fascinating because, like, you know, it's amazing. Like working with Butch and working with Rick, they're two completely different guys who have completely different approaches to making records, and they're both 100% valid. And it's both fascinating to see, like, how, you know, Butch is so particular, like I said, about like building it from the ground up, and like, knowing exactly how it's going to be. And Rick is more about, he doesn't care about how it's done. All he cares is about how it feels. You know, at the end of the day, it's like he doesn't care like how I mix it or what I mix it through, what I use on whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like,
just has to feel right.
It has to feel right. You know. Bass.
Was that the batters box?
That's his best. That's his.
Wow.
That's as much of an advantage I can throw my way.
Talk about trying to get an advantage on the guy.
I haven't won one in 160 episodes. I gotta
The
try.
batters box has started, so
That was a good one, Herb.
that was good. So
Do I get
bass.
points for that?
Yeah, you do.
Bass. Fairchild and reamped into Audio Kitchen's TBT.
Oh, bastard. Damn.
Snare.
Snare. Parallel compression with an 1176.
Okay, big boy. 808.
808. Wow, I don't really get a lot of 808s. I usually leave them pretty natural. Sometimes I'll use like a Vogue to try to get some of the low end out of it if it needs to cut through the mix.
That's a good answer, though.
It was.
Lead vocals.
Lead.
You know what? Let's narrow it down. Shirley's lead vocals.
Shirley's lead vocal, 1073 EQ, and a Summit TLA 100.
Stereo bus.
Stereo bus. Lately, the Slate's Focusrite. VBC.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually
The red.
Yeah, the red guy. It's like that's been kind of like my kind of
go-to?
energy go-to.
I
for
used
it.
the SSL one yesterday, and it was great too.
Yeah.
Reverb.
Reverb. I'd have to go with the H8000.
Is it reverb, Herb, or reverb?
Reverb.
Reverb works.
Next week it's going to switch.
Is it envelope or envelope?
Depends on part of the country. Is it aunt or aunt?
Aunt.
See?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Delay.
Delay. Oh, Echo Farm.
Oh, I miss Echo
it so
Farm.
much.
I was just talking to Dylan about that last night. Kick drum.
Kick drum, SSL channel.
Oh. Island microphone.
Island microphone. I'd have to go with a 251.
With a pad, without the pad?
Oh, without a pad.
Favorite piece of gear under $100 that you used on a widely known record?
Roger Meyer RM57 stereo compressor.
Damn.
Bam!
Ooh, as Chevy would say, funky bam. Wow. Yeah, don't even say anything.
Okay.
Sometimes when you're
He
shell
won, right?
one, bat speed,
Oh,
bass path running.
now you're making fun of me?
Listen.
Harsh room.
No, you did the best you could, and we congratulate you. But it was just not even in the same.
Will I ever win one, Herb?
Well, you've won before. We've just
Give me
talked about it
hope.
silently.
Give me hope, Herb.
You will. You will. Not today.
Okay. Hey man, thanks for sharing that with us. That was fun. That was really good.
So let's go over to the crazy Hungarian. He's both hungry and Hungarian. Chongor
and that's
Gans.
his real name.
Yeah, that's right. Chongor Gans over in corner office. How are you, Chongor?
Chongor, my man.
How are you
The
guys?
reason I say that is because Chongor lives near me, and as soon as he comes over, he says hello, walks in, goes to my kitchen, goes through my crackers and everything else, makes himself at home, and then sits down and says, "Okay, ready to talk."
He has crackers now, Chongor?
He's upgraded.
When we were writing the book, we got I had to go through the trash to find something to eat.
Absolutely. Chongor,
And
you
that
got.
wasn't Aretha's fault. That was your fault.
I know it was my fault.
Aretha's a good host.
Chongor, what you got for Billy?
We got some good questions. This first one's from Science the Producer. What are your go-to monitors to mix on, and what reference songs do you use when you enter a new studio for the first time?
Science, my man.
I like the Adams S3As and also the ATC 25As. Be my two. I kind of bounce back and forth between the
I
two.
got some ATCs from Brad myself.
Nice. Chongor, give us another.
Call Me Jolie. Do you ever find yourself in a place where you lose perspective on a project? If so, how do you refocus so you can stay objective?
Oh, all the time. Usually what happens, I just take a break, go for a walk, go to Starbucks, get some coffee.
Yeah.
I find it's funny, when I'm mixing, I like having my dog there because about every 3 hours, she'll come up and go, "Hey,
She'll
I'm
interrupt you.
bored."
Yeah.
That
And so
little
she'll
brown
pay attention
dog.
to me.
Yeah. and
What's your little brown dog's name?
her name's Vila.
Love it.
Yeah.
What
so
kind of dog?
It's like a little terrier
I'm a
rescue.
dog.
Hey, Chongor, he didn't answer the B part of that last question about what he
reference?
uses for reference.
I'll listen to whatever I've worked on lately. What I'm the most sort of, familiar with, whatever it's lately.
But you use your own songs, your own work to reference?
Yeah, stuff I know really well,
Okay.
what it sounds like.
Makes
So.
sense. Chongor, give us another.
From Amir Jama. What elements in a mix do you start to work with first, and does the song dictate where you start in the mix?
Yeah, the song definitely dictates, and the vibe of whatever the song is. I'll listen to a rough mix. Hopefully, they'll send a rough mix across with a basic idea of what they're going for, and that will be the thing, kind of all right, they're going for this. That'll tell me either I have to start with the vocal or start with the drums. So it's either vocal or drums, depending on the type of song.
Wow.
Are you one of those guys that does a 5-second rough mix and then work backwards from a completed mix, or do you work components at a time, assembling them?
I usually work components at a time. I kind of look at everything as an individual element. The
Gotcha.
drums are an element, bass, keys, vocals.
Gotcha.
So a couple things. One is we don't want to make you a guest coordinator, but tell Butch he can only run so long.
He knows.
Tell him.
He's been busy.
Well,
with
here's the see Dave
Foo
always does
Fighters
that
and all
busy
kinds
thing.
of
And I'm
things.
like, you can find an hour.
Yeah.
You can always find an hour. The thing that's really cool is our audience wants it so bad, just like with you.
Yeah.
So tell Butch, not about Dave and I. The audience is clamoring for him.
Nah,
They
and
want
he would
his
love to
knowledge.
do it, man.
And
He
we'd love to
loves-
have him.
yeah.
And you know what? We can even make it if we need to come to him.
Okay.
We'll make it work out. But more importantly, if you get an opportunity, you probably heard us talking about the Pensado Awards.
Yeah, of course.
And, we thought it was important for, artists like yourself to be recognized, and we gather the community and so forth, because we just didn't see that anyplace.
Right, yeah.
So, if you're available on June 28th, please come.
Awesome.
We'll set you up, make sure you're there.
Cool.
The people that are coming, I literally sent a
Bring
visa.
Shirley.
Absolutely. I sent a visa to the embassy at Uzbekistan 2
Wow.
days ago because there were about 5 people who want to come. So people come from all over the globe.
That's amazing.
It really is
Uzbekistan.
amazing. And it's because they just love you guys and the chance to either meet you or mix with you and so forth. And particularly in the way that you are, for some of the other things we're doing, wouldn't he just be phenomenal on some panels and stuff? So if you're ever interested in stuff
Absolutely,
like that.
man. No, I mean, I think sharing information is like really important. I think for what we do, it's like, you know, I think when I listen to stuff that Dave does, like I steal stuff from him all the time.
Oh, thanks.
And it's like, you know, it just makes my mixes better. And then, you know, hopefully that inspires somebody else. And, you know, we just want to make it better.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason to try to like keep it to be a closed shop and like, you know.
Well, from my perspective, what is great about guys like yourself is that you've not lost any love for it.
No.
You're still chasing things and curious about stuff, and
Yeah.
I think it informs our audience, certainly informs us, that there's never a there. You just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep pushing.
If you're lucky, keep going.
Keep
man.
going if you're lucky,
Yeah.
if you're lucky. Man, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
What an absolute pleasure, right?
Thanks, man.
Dave, take us home, buddy.
Guys, this is important. Pay attention. When you steal something from someone else and plagiarize something from someone else, if you do it in a bigger way than they did, it's being heavily influenced by them. If you don't do it as good as them, you stole it. So remember that. I made that up.
You did well, though.
That's amazing.
So you're off the hook because you do it better than I do. Whatever you took, it's got to be better than the way I did it. Hey guys, it's been so much fun. Once again, after all these episodes, you're starting to see a pattern, and that pattern is just a passion for some component in the audio process that ignites a spark that just grows and grows and grows like a Southern California wildfire, and at some point it creates its own atmosphere. And if you don't have that, don't get into this. Now, if you don't have that and want to get in this, understand it's going to be a hobby, and you want to get as good as you can at it, and we'll help you with that. But we got a special place in our heart for those guys that want to take it to the next level, and that's most of you guys out there. So we'll see you next week.